That's right.
Great, we're live whenever you're ready.
Okay. All right, everybody, thank you. Welcome to the New Paltz Planning Board January 3rd meeting. One of the year. We have some administrative business that we need to take care of. We'll have public comments and we have 2 public hearings. Then we have several application reviews that we'll go through for this evening. So to begin with, let's look at the approval of 1206 and 12/20/22 meetings. Who all was here at the meeting on the 6th? I was.
So you'll have to wait.
So we're gonna have to wait on that. For the 12/20 meeting, I was here.
Rich and Rachel.
And Rich and Rachel here, so we're going to have to wait on both of those. So the next thing we want to look at is any updates from the Ulster County Planning Board, the Environmental Review Board, and the Village of New Paltz Board of Trustees. Bill Murray attending via Zoom.
I don't see Bill. No, we have
Yep.
our guest consultants on.
Very good. So we're going to breeze right through those 2 pieces. The next thing we're going to do is we are going to open it up for public comments. Is there anyone online that you see is here for public comments?
Don't believe so.
There's Will.
There's, yeah, maybe Bill has some.
Okay. Now, is there anyone here that has a public comment? No? Okay, so Will, we were looking for updates for the Ulster County Planning Board, the Environmental Review Board, or the Board of Trustees just before you came in. So do you have anything for us?
No, I do not.
Okay. So we are going to move on then. Rachel, were you here on December 20th?
I don't remember. Yes.
Okay.
It was the
You were
last
here?
meeting. Yes,
Okay.
it was.
And there's 2 of us. Were you here for the meeting on the 6th?
That's the one I think I missed.
Okay,
That was the last one.
that's fine. Okay. So with that in mind, we're going to begin with public hearings. We're gonna start with the public hearing of PB 2221 118 Huguenot Street. David Keys, this is an application for a site plan approval. Remove an existing non-conforming shed that is presently located in the side yard setback. Construct a 24/14 pottery studio with a deck that meets the setback requirements. So I would like to get a motion to open the public hearing. Second.
Second.
So the public hearing is open. Is there anyone here?
Oh,
Yes, sorry. All in favor? Aye. So, is there anyone here that wants to speak to PB 2221? Anyone online?
No.
Okay, with that in mind, then I'm going to see that we have no one to speak in this public hearing. I'm going to ask for a motion to close the public hearing.
So.
Second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So the public hearing is now closed. The second public hearing is PB 222330 North Manheim Boulevard, Jeffrey Davies. This is an application for a site plan approval to construct a deck on an existing single-family residence over an existing and paved driveway to replace the existing stairs in the side yard setback with a new set of stairs that intrude less into the side setback, as well as a few other things related to the grade of the material and the grading of the house. So with that in mind, I need a motion to open the public hearing. We need a second, please. Second, all in favor? Aye. So the public hearing for PB 2223 is now open. Is there anyone online to speak to it?
No.
Okay. Is there anyone here that would like to speak to that? So hearing none, I then will ask for a motion to close the public hearing.
So.
Second, All in favor? Aye. So that takes care of our two public hearings tonight. We have an application review now, PB 2221, it's 118 Huguenot Street. So if you would just come forward, please. So we just read a little bit about the summary for the site plan approval, removing the existing non-conforming shed and constructing a 24 by 14 pottery studio. So what we want to do is listen to a little bit of what you have on the revised plans. And let's see where we go.
Sure, so we came in, I'm Robin, homeowner, David Ross. And we came in on the December 6th with the plan. We made some modifications. We had marked that there was a septic tank in the yard. That was a misunderstanding. There is no septic. So when we sent in a revised plan, that's been removed. Corey had actually written something about that in his review. So that's been addressed. And let's see. There's a parking space that actually doesn't exist. We were looking at the old survey. We're going to remove that as well. There was a question about the sediment being impacted that came up on the automatic DEC mapper, which I reached out to the DEC and got a letter from Nathan Ermer saying that it didn't meet any review. And he didn't think that it was threatening this project.
Okay, so that takes care of a couple of issues there. One of the things that we do need is, you did submit a plan to the Historic Preservation Committee, correct? And we did receive an approval. What we do need is we need to get that document from the HPC before we can officially approve. So if we can just make sure that you get that document from them. You already got the document?
They sent it out there.
Okay. We talked about this afternoon, didn't know there was they got it. The next thing we want to talk about a little bit are the restrictions on the application, similar to the ones that we've had in a couple of other applications where we've had people who built pottery, yoga studios, sculpture studio. And some of the restrictions that we are asking for is that we don't have a full bathroom. In fact, one of them we didn't even allow water into it, so the building would not become a rental residence, which would not conform to the codes for that area. So that's one of the restrictions that we'd like to discuss. Do we have any thoughts on that from the board?
So does the updated plan just show then no bathroom, just water for the?
We left the bathroom in place because it was a question mark, I believe, that I thought was going to be discussed.
Okay.
That this board needed to discuss some of the information. We would like to have water, obviously, because it is a pottery studio, so we'd like to have at least a sink. At the bare minimum.
So the bathroom,
That's a half bath, it's not a full bath, it's just
Right.
a sink in the
but
toilet.
it has a flushing toilet.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, okay.
I mean.
It's updated board plan, you know, which document is it? Should I be 15? Okay.
So in the past, you have allowed a half bathroom for his yoga studio, but you had a condition in your resolution saying that if it's going to be changed to anything other than, in that case, it's the yoga studio, here would be pottery, studio that you need to go back and get whatever approvals are necessary.
Okay.
It's acceptable.
Yeah, as long as we're being consistent with our applicants and.
Well, on one of the applications, we allowed nothing, and the other one we allowed half that. So.
It's already
More
to
than
the
the
intent to
Right.
modify the use.
Right. I'm sorry.
Did they already have it? They already have it. Oh, they already have it, but they didn't have a toilet, they wanted to put in,
Correct.
that's different.
True. But we understand that the necessity of having water to have a pottery studio. We understand that you're going to need a sink because making pottery is not a totally clean process. And having a toilet as well.
Should have really good ventilation because it's pretty much toxic. The dust from clay, chemicals from film.
That's why it's going out of the house.
Yeah, right now we have it in the house first, it's
No.
a messy, unclean.
that would be a difficulty.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts on that?
No, sorry about me.
It's okay, no, it's fine. So I think what we want to do then is we're going to need to place some restrictions in that. And actually, you want to kind of guide us through that because we want to have it similar to the ones where we did not allow the use of the building for purposes other than
So if you want to make a motion to authorize me to draft a resolution of approval, I can put that together then for your next meeting.
okay. So that way you'll get that,
You can send it
That-
beforehand, so you'll see what.
it'll come to you beforehand, exactly, and that way when it's, we get that, then next week we'll have or next time we'll have a resolution approval. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to ask for a motion to authorize our attorney to draft a resolution of approval with the restrictions preventing the building from becoming a residence. Like, is that the best way to put it?
Or just any kind of change of years.
Yeah, you change of use, that's right, that's good, that's a good way to do it. Without having, without coming before the board again for approval.
So motion.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So she's going to put together a resolution of approval and we'll get it over to you. You get a chance to take a look at it. If you have anything you feel you need to discuss or that you want to modify, then at the next meeting, we can take care of that. But otherwise, we will see you at the next meeting with the resolution of approval.
It's great, thank you so much.
Thank you. So our next item is PB 22-23-30 North Manheim Boulevard. So this is an application for a site plan approval to construct a deck on an existing single-family residence over an existing paved driveway to replace the existing egress stairs and side yard setback with new egress stairs that improve less into the side setback to lower the finished grade at the house to the low floor level and put that material in near the backyard to raise grade. Property is a bit about the property and it's in the R2 residence district. So we're going to listen to your presentation on anything revised submissions. So right ahead.
So submitted to the board a few weeks ago, the updated architectural plan, which include site plan, zoning bulk table, updated to put existing and proposed info together in one, and add asterisks to footnotes for the pre-existing non-conformities. And so that is should be satisfactory for your review to clarify that situation. And then a basement floor plan. Which. Where I show the 1, 2, 3, 4 parking spaces required for the number of bedrooms. And then. That site elevation, and you get a sense of the grade change between existing and proposed. And so that's the area approximately, as we take down some of that material, it goes there and clean cap. It does not extend past the into the rear yard setback.
Okay,
So that would be, the end of it would be in the buildable area of any grade change.
so what are you using for clean cap on that?
First,
Okay.
I mean, they want it to be lawn or garden.
Got it. Got it.
So it's something like 2 feet of
Okay,
clean fill on top of anything like that. So other the other supplements were the list of all of the hazardous waste remediation sites that default and close to the default quality. And then I don't know if Cory was able to weigh in on the issue of whether the blacktop can be considered clean fill. If I have a citation which seems to indicate mostly it is blacktop all around us, exposed on the surface. If it's below, some earth, it shouldn't be more toxic. It doesn't degrade. Particularly, it doesn't off gas. Some of the other things in consider hazardous spill you don't want with it. Does not seem to be in that category though, because of petroleum
Right.
byproduct, it's not as clear. And so the one citation would seem like a authoritative, seem to say it's overall, it's not bad.
Then you got that from the DEC or from Cory.
The citation is it's an environmental.
You're turning an area that's currently blacktop into an area of lawn and then an area of lawn into blacktop.
Not precise. When you get back to the site.
Dig the blacktop, it's not a natural thing to have
Right, so.
under your garden, wouldn't it prevent it's not permeable, asphalt isn't permeable, so like. You would want to be able to drain the lawn or growing something. You wouldn't leave it.
The situation. So this is blacktop here, in the backyard, and it's too high up. So we need to take it down. We need to remove it because it's higher than the finished floor inside, and it's been rotting the lower floor members. That's the wall, the sill plate and such. So that's been repaired, but we want to take it down, so step down now. So it's not a lot of inches, but then they want to have some of it would be redone in blacktop, and some of it would be drivable pavers in some area. And so they also want a little bit more of a turnaround area here. This would be the black plastic mesh that's definitely it's like you can drive on, but it's mowable on. This area they want to make it a little higher. They want to make a little because right at the edge of this the driveway, it slopes down, and then they have a lower part of the yard that's harder to utilize. So they wanted to have a little bit of a higher area. So that was the purpose. And one idea is that when we're taking up this material, it would be broken up into small enough chunks that it wouldn't be a water drainage issue. It would basically be like large gravel or rocks at the the sides that are remaining after it's broken up. So
you're gonna break the asphalt up into chunks. Okay. Like gravel size chunks?
no, I think they'd be roughly, a few inches by a foot or two. Something like that.
And then that's going to go underneath. So a foot or so,
Right. I mean, 2 foot path, 2 foot a path is what recommended there. And so that would just fill in some of that area. They do probably, they excavate some of the finished soil,
right,
first, and then they bury, deeper. So that would be part of the tap and the existing material, as part of the excavation process. And then it would just, it should have fewer truck trips removing this material. And if it's clean fill, then they're achieving part of their goal of raising, that small area above the backyard. For best usability, patio area, a larger place they can mingle guests right off of the new deck.
question?
Yeah, I would just say in terms of the ground asphalt being used as fill, I would just prefer to have Cory or someone that's can advise us to determine whether it is considered clean fill. There must be an absolute answer. I appreciate you brought a citation, but it's like, you can probably find something that says either. I don't think I have, the engineering opinion on whether that's something that we would allow. I'm surprised we haven't had this conversation before. But we haven't, I don't know. you know, it's to your point, it's putting a petroleum-based product underground, but if it was already above ground, I don't, you know, I just don't know. I don't know if it's likely to drain oil into the next property, into the groundwater. I'd just like to have someone tell us about that, so even if we move closer to a resolution, I think we would want to make sure that it's pending a clear statement, a clear recommendation to us as the board.
There's a difference between clean fill and clean fill dirt.
Right.
Any materials, sand, clay, gravel, and so on.
I did
Yeah,
like the
I'm
Cory
curious.
for
Huh?
feedback.
Yeah,
I did write to Cory and Blue for feedback, but.
Yeah, it's the first time.
If that's acceptable to us entirely, then be contingent on an approval.
And for cost and other reasons, we can understand why we're proposing to do that, but I just don't feel like I can say yes to it unless we hear someone that knows.
And you could authorize the drafting of a resolution and provide that's, yes, satisfactory after, you know, before the.
If the other members agree with that.
Like whether it's a contingency, you know, you can't use it, it gets dropped out.
Right.
I agree with that.
Okay, so we're gonna look at that as one of the items being, contingent upon, information from Cory, contingent on Cory's approval as clean fill or removal of fill.
And then if it wasn't, would be bringing new fill in, would you still be proposing to raise that rate?
Yes,
So you have to bring in new clean fill.
right. I believe there would still have been, you know, new clean fill needed. It wouldn't just have been site, you know, clean.
Right.
Finished grade. So there already would have been some, it just would have been, you know, a little less, but roughly the same amount.
Okay. So you said the property that is adjacent, you submitted a DEC and we've got a EAF map or remediation notice. And what property is that? You said the New Paltz Plaza?
Yes, the dry cleaners, apparently, the historic dry cleaners, New Paltz Plaza.
Paltz Plaza, dry cleaner, right?
Revenack Dry Cleaners. 12 New Paltz Plaza. There are 2 citations for that one.
Does it indicate how far that is away from the property?
Oh, this does not, but it's.
So the matter, I think it triggers anything within 2,000 feet of the property, and I did look up that site on the remediation database, and it does say that it's been remediated, so I was looking for the actual details of the relevant spill or remediation that said whether or not it's been cleared or it's been remediated, so it has been, so it shouldn't be an issue.
Okay. Okay. So we can check that one off.
I'm curious to see what Cory or anyone's responses to from looking at asphalt as clean fill. I think. it's-
Yeah, I'm just reading the whole
I
passage.
think in general, it's something that's kind of up in the air.
Yeah, but it does say that
Fragments
if
of.
you read it carefully, it says that it's only qualifies as clean fill if it's completely inert. And that it says that, but most asphalts can't be considered completely inert.
Mhm.
So I think if I were to read this, which I'm sorry, I'm just doing that now, I would actually say I would not know to the use of the asphalt unless we're told otherwise.
Okay.
But we could just get told.
Yeah, let's see what Cory has to say, but it's interesting that you brought that out.
Thanks for giving us the information. Sure.
So we've kind of covered that one, that we talked about the EAF mapper, with it being the dry cleaners, which is reasonably far away from Manheim. You revise the parking, it's here, and if we get Cory's zoning code review.
It was in the folder.
We did know that there was 4 parking spaces required, which. We
Yeah.
definitely needed on the plan. I would ask, so if we could just. turn
Required to take.
We're looking over to say 4, that's really only 2, it's kind of,
3, 4.
but.
Inside and around.
Yeah, so it's just kind of confusing, we don't think it's there would be 4 right there. So, I don't know, maybe say 2 there, 1 there.
New driveway, yeah, right, I mean, each of the actual spaces.
Here, it's numbered.
Has got a-
It's confusing that it seems like they're saying 4 right here, and that's really only 2. So.
Any edits you like to see it, if you have them.
Yeah,
And
and
that's
pretty.
just, yeah, just make sure it's numbered simply because you're sitting here and you're making it clear to us, but 10 years from now, we're all hopefully not still on planet.
Speaking
Um,
of that, Sean.
And so it would be so we can make those notes. There will be a legacy partner over here. But that way we can have the information should a question ever come up again, because all this does go to the property and not the individual, so. That would be helpful. Looking at here, he goes through the declaration for existing non-conforming features. With the existing conditions of the zoning bulk table to better visualize the minimum front yard, side yard, maximum lot coverage. You have that note from him.
Yes, this came in before I finalized the edits.
Yeah, that's
So
fine.
yeah, so this is specifically the one zoning bulk table that's got
Perfect.
all the
Okay.
parts.
Okay. No other code compliance defects are identified at this time. Here we go. So that covers majority of that. Any other questions?
Well, I feel comfortable authorizing the commission to draft the
Okay.
resolution pending on this. Direction.
Or we could probably just be like, I'll change the, that'll be something else, I'll change it in the plan.
You know, that might be easier because if he comes back 2 weeks from now and says that didn't work, then we have to go through another 2, so it just will continue to delay. It's easier, it would be easier from my perspective, and I don't know if you agree or not, just removing that using the still.
Yes, that's what we'll do. I'll update plans as required to remove that, so there'll be those 2 changes in the parking spots. Application, and then removal of the proposed.
All right, so with that in mind, I'm going to request a motion approving our attorney to draft a resolution of approval with the notation that the asphalt will not be used as clean fill. And then the notations on the bulk table. Anything else? I think that's it. So I need a motion, please. Second,
Second.
all in favor? Aye. So, yeah, get that cleaned up, submit those in the autumn, we'll get them over to action. Get your approval and, here we go. You're very welcome. So we're skipping over that one for the next week. Got it. So the next thing that we have, well. No Cooper Street? No Cooper Street. There will be, let me make an announcement here. There will be no PB 2218 review tonight for 6, 8, and 10 Cooper Street.
That because we didn't get our engineering.
Primarily, we just didn't get our engineering material back.
Did the zoning change take effect yet?
Yes. It is now an R3 zone. So you'll get all the information back and we'll be able to cover all of it in one video rather than having to come back again and again. So the next item that is coming up is PB 2211. It is 137 Chestnut Street Trail Link. I think we're all familiar with what's going on there. They're going to construct a 63,409 square foot 3-story mixed use building in the NBR district. Following permits required mixed use buildings, general and professional offices. For the first floor apartments facing away from Route 32 north and less accessible units. So we are going to, excuse me, pardon me. We're going to listen to the applicant's updates. We're going to review any comments from Alton County Planning Board. Did we get our comments from Alton County Planning Board?
No, I forget,
And did we get our comments from Dennis Larios?
not yet.
So who?
They're preliminary, this is preliminary.
Preliminaries and still there, okay. So what we'll do then is we'll listen to your updates, then we are going to look at the comments that are from Capital Environmental and from DTS Providence on the traffic. And then we'll then we'll just kind of have to move forward and get the rest of that information as it comes in, so we can keep going. Okay. So floor is yours.
Jumping dates of the high decision and design. So we've got a couple of subdivisions just in the last week. Part of the direction of Polaris is an initial review, and then some coordination that we need to have with second on the same thing. So 28th of December, we did meet village building at the site to talk about the project and our proposed utility services, water and sewer services. Try to get an idea of kind of what's going on, existing out there as far as infrastructure is. So as we had understood from prior mapping, there's we're speaking the sanitary sewer commissioning south, right around the shoulder, eastern shoulder. I'm sorry, western shoulder, to south to so our current proposal for and present on the site plans is we are proposing our own pump station, sanitary pump station, that will connect into that, which means send out a handle of power effluent discharge for the site. DPW did have an issue with that, so we're going to be advancing the actual design of that pump station coordination with the project needs. Our estimated flow of the product was just over 8,000 gallons per day. And Silver had identified that the capacity is there and exists in the village system. We had presented a little serve letter at the I guess the village doesn't issue a little serve letter. He said that the planning board wanted to do it, they could. We were just seeking that because this is little projects coming down the road, right? And we'd love to have something that kind of secures that flow of our project. So I don't know if that's something the board would entertain.
That's really not in our level of expertise at all, so we really can't.
Okay, so
Provide
I'll go and then it's there for us.
I would just have one comment, the other pump station that they put in New Paltz stinks the high end. So if you are gonna put a pump station in, please have air filters, there's got to be something, because that's even a more traffic area. The one I'm talking about is, it's on Henry W. By the screen there.
Yeah.
It stinks to high heaven, it stinks. And it's just very bad, it's very bad. I don't like it. So, I mean, I know you can put filters and scrubs, there's things you can do, and it's too late now, do anything with it. But if you're actually gonna put a pump station in, we need to protect, especially, there's a big rail trail, can you imagine walking down the rail trail and.
Sure. And it's going to be near to our facility and there's residents there, so of course we would want a call like that.
No, but I mean, the residents, the other one kind of getting used to it. But I mean, when people get used to it, it's just. They shouldn't have to.
We definitely make sure we consider
I would assume that this conversation about the capacity to handle 8,000 gallons and whether the serve agreement or anything like that is something we're going to continue to visit over the course of the more than we review this project. Is that soon, or is this the conversation about whether the village's infrastructure can handle this type?
Exactly, as far as from a speaker perspective,
Yeah.
and your engineer can weigh in on that as well, as far as not needing the will serve a guarantee that you're gonna get the capacity, but is there existing enough capacity for the product? That's definitely something we want to do.
So just make me know that. I mean, there's a little bit of dissonance about what we hear about the issues with our village water sewer system, and Blue saying no problem, we can handle that, but not putting it in writing.
Yeah.
I want to make sure we really look at this. It's somebody who knows something about it.
Right, that's understandable. I think that the idea is that the village can't give a letter of guarantee for one and not another. If they give it for one, but not the other, and then the other one finishes first, the project and has the demand for the other project, the initial project has, that would put them in conflict. So I think that they're going to look at things on a case by case basis as the project gets ready or closer. They'll be able to give us a better idea, and I think that our village engineer will be able to provide us information on that with reasonable accuracy.
So we'll continue to pursue that with Premier.
Yeah. So there are, of course, things that you can do in terms of efficiencies or we talk about models. For instance, one project that's come to us is proposed a surge tank in which they'll collect the effluent, and then when demand is at its lowest, then they would pump to the station so that the demand doesn't hit it at a peak time, and the facility would then be able to handle it quarterly. So I mean, there may be other efficiencies that they want you to look at, and engineer may want you to look at.
Yeah, so that 8,000 is for the DEC manual. They allow for 20% reduction for water saving pictures of that nature. We didn't take that reduction, so it would be less than that. And even talking on a site with Blue, you know, that number is slightly elevated, you know, in reality, maybe you're 2/3 of what that is or something. So it ends up at the end of the day being a less than that. Just that information.
Is there any significant variability in the usage with regard to which tenants, commercial tenants end up in the ground? Like there's not gonna be any manufacturing, I would presume.
Correct. Right now, it's basically what it says office, so that how numbers is calculated. Obviously, if you had a restaurant or you know,
Right.
manufacturing, you're saying that there's a DC number that will correspond to that.
Okay.
So the water, there's existing main east side of 32 that we would propose to tap for the new service. And that would provide fire suppression and for the water to the building. So we just discussed, you know, if the live lines, it would be the wet tap. And then, you know, build the service across to the project site. So I think our proposals, we seem to take any exception to, they'll continue to be involved in bringing the details and whatnot as things go.
Okay.
Then on the 30th, we met representative from Second Hudson and also New York State DOT on the project site. Right now, starting with Central Hudson, there is a 30-foot utility easement that comes across the front of the site on the parcel. The actual gas line is out in the shoulder of 32 in the DOT right of way, so it's quite removed from the parcel boundary right away boundary. So our proposed to reduce that to 15 feet. So we'll start from the right of way line in 15 feet as opposed to 30, which brings it back into the building.
Right.
And Central Hudson was amenable to that. They just want flexibility. If a DOT project or something that comes down the road, that they have an ability to potentially adjust for the gases. We will need to adjust for the gases for our project. What we will work with them to get confirmation on that reduced easement there. They did confirm that they're the service provider for both gas and electric. We'll have a listen from them stating that, and then we'll go forward with them when it comes to the actual service side. Things like that. There's an existing pole. One third north of our property ends that we discussed. We will be looking to move that to the south, so it's not directly in front of the building. They can still do the work because right now it comes with join the way to the apartments.
Mhm.
So they can do the same, and just bring it right across the street, and then go on their second.
Okay.
So, that would be moved from the, the facade of the building.
Right.
I'm trying to move some, more aesthetic approaches. Gas too, they said, a service can be brought into the site. If needed, we were talking about before, identify the generator. Gas.
Does that 30-foot, what you're proposing for then be 15 easement, does that have any effect on the things that you had planned to put in front of the building in terms of the bicycle parking, any of the amenities that might?
No, because all, as I mentioned, gas right now is out at the outside of the proposed parking spaces that we have, so there's, we're not really changing the cover or anything there. We may have some milling of the pavement to put a new top course down. All those other improvements are within the project site. So the benches, the street trees, pavers, landscaping, that's all within the project site away from the gas. The one thing that they noted is this curving here gets a little close to the gas line. There are thresholds that we could put it over top of it. But if we, and we talked about this in DOT as well, we, look at that again and pull that curving away from the gas line, it just makes something up to feel a little bit better. And DOT was amenable to working with us on how to lay out curve. So everything's, pretty well away from the existing gas.
So even if it's away from the existing gas, is there a restriction in the easement saying you can't have certain types of improvements within that easement area?
No,
And that
they
would
were
be-
asking what was in that, but they did not identify if there was a restriction. Look at that. We've got to amend that anyway, so we'll just.
Yeah, if you look at that, if you go look at that and you have a copy of that easement, any reference on your plans, that's going to file documents in that regard, but just to make sure. And if you're in discussion with them to, any amendments you'll need to make sure, because they might allow things like bike racks, you could, remove if they need to, then get into there. But
Yeah, they were more concerned about the permanent structure, which we were. Then, so there's also represented the DOT out there. We had not gotten, as part of the secret circulation, we didn't get any responses from any outside agencies that we saw. So that's why we're pushing the DOT out there, and we have provided them the traffic study site plans on the scope. So the DOT does have those documents, say that the planning group does have to review, and we got all of those in the field at this meeting. And some of the things we talk about coincide with the European traffic, so it's so there's some overlap there that we will be providing to as well. One is they talk about site distance, just take a look at our site distance is coming out on the project site on the 32. This is a 30-mile-an-hour zone, so relatively slow speed limit on here. So we make sure that there's no impact really the on-street spaces here. We'll just make sure that those are outside of the site distance. When we want to set for those. We talked about the access. We really have much comment on our radio or curbing. We said they will work with us to get that work away from the gas. Sidewalk, we're just going to look at how that aligns in correspondence to the right of way line. I think we're going to push that a little further east. So the sidewalk is substantially within the right of way. If not, then we're looking at some right of way donation to the DOT, which is a lengthy process. So we're going to look at that layout again as we move forward with our highway improvement plans. Like when they were good with, we'd be providing the shallows or the, heated. Some baby there. We've just got to, and I think, this year mentioned this, the crosswalk, we had a crosswalk. Along 32 here, just how that ties into our improvements and making, make sure we get that. We
Yeah,
actually,
crosswalk will lead over to the apartments.
right now, it just kind of leads over to this side of the street. So we have to just look at how that ties into the sidewalk there. We are in the final steps of the full right-of-way survey for our traffic improvement plans and conjunction with our DOT permit. So that'll be, tied into those improvements, and we'll get that updated on the assessment as well.
Was there any conversation with DOT about sidewalk generally on that, northwest side of? And how, there's some moments of sidewalk and lots of moments of not sidewalk, but zero place, and then your building. There's a real opportunity there, and it seemed.
We didn't get into that. We are going to be in touch. So John Wiley is the gentleman from the team on this set. So we will be in touch with him. We can approach that.
It doesn't sound that, go over proper property,
Yeah, I mean,
then you get to the bridge.
it is beyond.
Yeah, it probably does, but that's, that's an obstacle, that's where we're going, which is.
One of those properties for.
Well, there's their property, right forward, and then there's private residence. And then there's the road narrows considerably to the 2-lane bridge. And then it widens back out because you have Stewart's building, and then you have the Zuma place. You have the farm, both sides.
There's a connection.
The other side, yes, goes up and over, yeah.
It's just as the vision for the NBR continues to unfold, it becomes pretty obvious that it's odd to have a large residential building there, another large residential building there, and that people would have to walk on 32 to really get to from each of them.
It's certainly something that needs to be addressed, and I don't know whether you build a bike lane on the outside of that bridge or on the west side, or whether you just essentially demand everyone across the street and go
Yeah, well, that has that.
on the side of over.
Not,
Like in front of Village Arms where it kind of goes.
yeah, I don't know if that would be accessible. It's not very well maintained. Anyway, it's a bigger conversation.
Yeah, that's a bigger conversation.
If there were more ways to connect to the rail trail, it wouldn't be as important.
Well,
That's sort of. Doing here, and then we're like, books.
so it's actually very good.
I mean,
That's some sort of directional. Something that notifies them that bike lane ends in 300 feet. Please access rail trail and sign for something like that. Work out, but you're right. It's not much we can do once it hits the private property there and then the small bridge.
you took your place to down that little bridge right there, and there's another way to get.
True, but they're saying that they're going to offer access to the rail trail from their property.
Yeah, we have that proposed bridge on that.
Sorry to interrupt, go right ahead.
No, I think that summarizes the couple segments that we had. And we did receive the letters from the consultants.
Right, and we've got those gentlemen here, so we're going to ask them to weigh in while you are here and with us, so thank you for that nice segue. So with that in mind, we really, no comments, Walter County Planning Board yet? No.
Can we, or can you put out a request to them, because it's been some time since that.
They didn't have quorum at the last meeting,
Yeah.
so they did not send anything about your application. I'm assuming they're gonna review it tomorrow night.
Okay.
And if they don't have a form tomorrow night, then we might get a letter as we got in the previous meeting, but they did not have for them, and they noted that they didn't do so the time had passed and they moved forward. But we'll see, gotta kind of wait for them tomorrow, see what's happening in that. So, with that in mind, we'd like to get our consultants to, weigh in. So we have, Capital Environmental, so if you could just go ahead and hop on here, take the floor, introduce yourself and give us kind of your brief, if you would, please.
Hi, how was it read today? Happy New Year. My name is Greg Fleischer from Capital Environmental Consultants, professional wetland scientist. Appreciate the time this evening. We did review the threatened and endangered species habitat suitability assessment report by Michael Nowicki. We had some pretty minor comments regarding that report.
Craig, can I ask you, hold on for just a moment, we are trying to resolve a brief technical difficulty, which will make your presentation smoother and better. No, it's not good.
I think we're good. Yeah, we've got you now.
Okay. Was it a little fuzzy before? You want me to start over?
Over here, a different channel. If the battery dies, somebody want to plug in for us?
Yeah.
You just have to,
So I'm sorry, but if you would begin at the start at the beginning again for us, please.
Sure. So I said Happy New Year to everybody. Thanks for allowing me to speak tonight. We reviewed the threatened and endangered species habitat suitability assessment report. All good?
All good, keep going.
Okay, sorry. So, and by Michael Nowicki. And we had just a few minor comments regarding the report. It's obviously a site that's had some use before. And Mr. Nowicki did a good job describing what was basically there. We had three main points that we raised in our letter. One regarding the site plan and two regarding the habitat assessment. So regarding the site plan, we just asked that the applicant, we recommended the applicant provide a cross-section and construction detail for the pedestrian bridge that's going to be crossing the western watercourse that's closest to the rail trail. And then in terms of habitat assessment, we just were suggesting that we discuss the forested western watercourse that's going to be crossed separately from the drainage swales to the north and northeast. One's forested to the west and one is, loosestrife, reedgrass, and cattails to the north and northeast. And then just to help the board and the public maybe just better understand maybe just a simple ecological communities map on a survey or a current aerial to just sort of describe what those areas are. There's a little more detail in our letter, but that's the gist of it. Just some minor revisions to that, just to give a little more clarity to the board.
Okay.
So the bridge, we are working on or looking into the details on that. So those will definitely be provided in the future. Mr. Nowicki was provided with this letter too, and he is looking to respond to the other regarding the habitat. So we're going to do a cumulative response to comments for all these point by point. So we'll get those to the board consideration.
Okay, so we have material here. When they come, when they're finished with their statement or when they produce their statement, their review as well, then we'll want to get some back and forth with you at that time, if we could, please, Craig, so that we can make sure that we address the issues completely.
Sure, happy to.
Any questions from the board on just the recommendations? Just out of curiosity, tell me a little bit about the bridge. How is it going to be narrow, wide? What's up with the bridge that's going to cross?
I mean, right now we are considering a pedestrian scale bridge. So we're looking at is about 8 feet in width. There's an opportunity for one of the applicants been looking at. It's about 50 feet long, about 8 feet wide. This one in particular is steel construction, and it kind of has the bridge across the Wallkill downtown here. It's got that kind of rust type of finish to it, you know. So I think that's will kind of blend into the setting there. That's the one that we're reviewing right now for this. So it would be set on an abutment on either side of the tributary 13 there, and lower down. Those be placed that way.
Okay.
And then we just have, you know, we'd obviously have a trail section coming up to each end of the bridge, one from the rail trail and one from interior to the site.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. Appreciate the review, and we'll certainly have you clued in on things as they come forward. So next we have Mr. Holt from DTS Provident. If you would just go ahead and give us some information that you have accumulated, please.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. Happy New Year. Carlito Holt with DTS Provident. We reviewed the traffic study prepared for the application, as well as a review of the site plan from a traffic and pedestrian circulation and safety standpoint. We had some minor technical comments on the traffic study. What I'll do is I'll touch upon what are really the more substantive comments for the sake of time. One thing we noted, and I apologize, I had a little trouble hearing Justin's initial presentation, but with respect to status of the DOT, where that stands and whether they've had any preliminary feedback on the access, and in particular, the provision of the on-street parking, because obviously that on-street parking is needed in order for them to meet the parking requirements required by code. So, you know, if they've had any input from DOT one way or the other on the on-street parking, would be beneficial to note that. We noted that they should provide some vehicle turning templates on the site plan, both for emergency service vehicles as well as anticipated delivery or moving trucks. And also note where those delivery or moving trucks would load and unload. You know, obviously they're going to be occurring internal to the site, but if they just note where on the site plan they would anticipate them occurring, and frequency and time of day would be beneficial. I did reach out to Colliers concerning accident data. They indicated that they have requested it from the DOT. They had not received it at the time they prepared the traffic study. So I would anticipate they'll supplement that with their response to our comments. And I know Justin touched upon the site distance, and I think you said you added site triangles for your site driveway to demonstrate you had adequate stopping site distance now.
Yes, we will be providing that with our updated submission.
All right. The one other thing we noted, and it may be beneficial to add to the plan, is there's a driveway for the RideCorp property immediately south of your site. So you should probably put a site triangle on that, just at least looking to the left to see if the on-street parking is going to impact their sight lines. And then we noted that at the south end of the property, there's an existing crosswalk on North Chestnut that goes from where the sidewalk currently ends over to the southeast corner of Veterans Drive intersection. And that would be beneficial to show on the plan and how that fits in the context of the on-street parking that's going to be provided.
Understood.
And that was really the main comments that we had from a traffic and pedestrian safety standpoint.
Okay. I think we had some comments from the board related to that we wanted to review in terms of the traffic study. Rich had discussed some information that he had seen on the report, so I'm going to let him go ahead and detail his thoughts there.
Thanks, John.
I guess so first I would start with maybe a question for Carlito, which is there a standard distance from the proposed site that would govern the scope of the study to be done in terms of the traffic impact study? The reason I'm asking that question, now ask the answer, sorry, is because there are other locations that are traffic locations that are likely to be impacted by the existence of this new building that aren't in the study, and the study only focuses on those immediately, contiguous Veterans Avenue and their own entrance and egress. But when you look at, for instance, all the work we did to evaluate the impact of Zero Place on Henry W. Du Bois and 32 North, we would have to imagine that many more residents living on that block or on that street is going to have an impact on the level of service of that intersection, and maybe even as far as 32 and 299 and how that traffic flows. So I'm interested in, like, what's the standard by which we would ask for a study in a situation like this?
I would also, the distance going in the opposite direction back by my market, and taking into account the fact that that we are going to have another development that's going to be coming up in the old Agway building. So there's going to be a considerably greater amount of traffic. So I guess what you're asking is, can we expand that study? Go right ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
So the short answer, as far as a standard, there isn't a set standard. I could cite some other agencies, like for instance, New Jersey Department of Transportation has a very specific criteria as to when you would have to study an intersection, and the threshold is typically is 100 trips. This project in total wouldn't generate 100 peak hour trips during any peak hour. So for the most part, this would be classified as a minor traffic generator. But that doesn't preempt the board from requesting consideration of other locations if they're concerned about an existing problem intersection that's nearby that they feel may be impacted. Just by way of reference, the PM hour has the higher volumes for the project. So they'd have about 36 peak hour vehicles oriented to the north of the site and 31 peak hour vehicles oriented to the south. Traditionally that wouldn't warrant more extensive offsite analysis. However, I've seen, boards recommend, an analysis of offsite intersections, even with 10 or 20 new trips, because they know that it's a constrained location.
But just I'm understanding the kind of location or the gravity of the study is related to the new trips generated by that specific project. So it's not based off of like a geographical location, let's say 4-mile radius. It's based off of just new trips.
It's based off of new trips, and the other thing to consider is that the applicant didn't take credit for what the site could currently generate as an existing use if they were to reoccupy the site under that pre-existing use. So they were conservative in that respect. I wouldn't necessarily recommend additional offsite locations based upon the volumes that they're projecting. But again, it's at the board's discretion if they're concerned about another location. They can definitely recommend one.
And we did include, which Mr. Holt noted, 2% growth rate over the course, which is also, in talking to our traffic guys, pretty conservative or, pretty generous when it comes to projecting out, what the traffic, the background traffic may be.
Can you remind me the number of units and parking spaces required for your development?
So we have 44 units and just shy of 13,000 square feet of the office. Based on the village code, require a total of 74 spaces, which we have provided. And as Mr. Holm noted, it was, you know, the on-street as well as interior to the site, which is permitted by the village code.
Well, that's a very similar scale to the zero place approval. And if we're, and the intersection of Henry W. Boyce and 32, when the zero place study was, we can find it, I don't have it before me, but I remember that it did, that same volume that they would predict generating did impact the service level of that intersection enough for us all to discuss it for a meeting or so.
And we did
Now that
account-
intersection's been re-engineered also with the light
Right.
and with a split lane. So that helps too. But I'm also, I think we all are also sometimes behaving as proxy for the public who is gonna say like, this is gonna generate a lot of traffic in these two places. And I think we'd want to consider being proactive about what we might ask you we might ask you to extend the study to address the public's concerns.
I think part of the benefit of us obviously being local members of the community is that when the public hearing does come, we sort of can anticipate what's gonna come up, so it's not meant to be, you know, bothersome, but more anticipatory of what'll come up. The only thing I will say, and I feel like this is just a general statement, you know, you made a comment about what's gonna happen at Agway. You know, it's hard, but it's not necessarily this applicant's, I don't want to say problem, but we have to really be clear because that's a potential project and, you know, we have to look at the project that's in front of us right now. And obviously like Carlito is not looking at the implications of a project that could happen 2 years from now. So I wish we could see into the future of what these projects are going to be, but I think it's only fair that, and unfortunately we have to focus on the specific application.
And what I can point out too is the background traffic numbers, which are commented here, that was the 2% growth rate I was speaking about. It included zero place. It included 12 North Buck Corners Road. That proposed project is in the town of New Paltz, but with traffic engineers and engineers of record on that. So we did include potential numbers from that. If the Agway project is something, you know, the board wants us to include in those numbers as well. We could consider that if we had the details of that. We could look at that and see how it affects what we studied thus far.
Yeah, just to touch on that as well, because it is appropriate if there are other, you know, pending or other approved projects in the village that are also going to generate traffic to potentially the same intersections and areas that might be impacted, then you could certainly ask that they consider those in their study and their number. So I don't know if you have the specifics about that one yet, or if it's just still.
We just have a preliminary from them. I think the application is not yet. I think it comes to us probably next week or the following week. And so we'll have a bit more detail at that time. But I think it's possible we may want to include that simply because, well, we don't know how many units it's going to have it at the moment. And then, of course, the unit next to Zero Place where the mechanics office is, it's got a Roddy's place. It's got some units that are there that he has not begun work on yet, so that's going to also influence, although it's not a great number. It's what, 24 units? Something of that nature. Don't know. It's not. We'll work on that in a moment. But that will. Okay, let's focus. But we're going to probably need to include those so that we can get a bit more of a projection of what the future might hold, even though we can't hold you accountable for that. Just if we can account for the traffic, it might be a little bit helpful.
To have the answers, right? Because actually, even if we included all of those potential developments, if we were only looking at these A-rated and B-rated service level intersections, it wouldn't matter. What I'm suggesting and what I'm asking is that we look at those implications and look at the C and D rated intersections and see what impact those have on them. And those ones that I think are the Henry W. And even as far as 299.
Yeah.
It may require us to,
Very, sorry, but just as another, it's really not, it's hard to imagine like 50 more cars in 1 hour coming southbound on 32 South. That's traffic, I would like to know the data.
Okay, so we could look at the other projects, like I mentioned, that's fair. Are you asking for specific intersections to go back and study those as well and see what those are? And what are those that we could take back and?
that would be the, I guess you need to look at how it will affect, because it's not really gonna affect Bonacue. That would be more of the Agway project affecting that. But past Veterans Drive, Henry W. Du Bois.
I'm sorry.
Is our Henry W. Du Bois would be an intersection. What's the next intersection up there with the light? Before we get to 299?
So, Front Street.
Front Street, thank you. Front Street and then 299. And Chestnut, yeah.
And maybe there's a way to build a table that gives consideration to, like Ashley mentioned, sort of future property, estimates of future property development. Because I do remember in the secret review for Zero Place, we did take that into account too. Because the vision for the NBR assumes that that's going to happen.
Yeah.
And those, yeah, like I mentioned, we have a couple of those in here.
Yeah.
And we'll look to,
Excuse me.
we could do others.
Sure.
Okay.
Let's just see what it looks to be, and then, Mr. Holt, if you could likewise take a look at those same intersections.
Yeah, I pulled up, we had reviewed the Chestnut Square application about a year ago. And they
Mhm,
had,
yeah.
they had analyzed the Henry W. Du Bois intersection with the proposed improvements, and that was a level of service A intersection during both the AM and PM hour.
That's because of that re-engineering of,
Right.
of the intersection,
Yeah,
which happened because of the study at Zero Place. So we have the opportunities to make positive change.
Yeah, make it a little bit safer in the area, so, okay.
and just to be clear, you want to look at applications that have standing or applications that you hear are forthcoming or both?
There will be an application that has standing, in 2 weeks. That will be the Agway, location. They're coming before the board and they'll have their initial.
It's been submitted, it just
It
hasn't
has been submitted, yeah, it
right?
hasn't been, right.
Is it on the website yet or not yet?
No. So it has been submitted, we haven't scheduled it for review, and that'll begin on the 17th, probably, initial review of it.
The other one you mentioned was Chestnut Square.
Chestnut Square.
That's the other one. Okay.
And that's the Roddy.
Yep.
I have one other particular question about the traffic impact, which is how, and it probably is in here, I just couldn't quite figure out how the diagrams all look. But when we think about some of the more unsafe things that happen on that street, it's also left turns off of, if you're heading 32 north into your site, for example, and making that left turn in. It obviously creates backup and it creates impatient people that then cut into the shoulder and injure bicyclists. And I'm just wondering, how is that accounted for in a traffic study? Like the effect of the 35 northbound cars during that hour of time that we said would happen, and their needing to make a left turn into the building.
So that is, under DOT jurisdiction, if they're going to require a left into the site. That was not a point of discussion that came up during our meeting. So that, we'll have to vet that with them.
Yeah.
I apologize, I can't quote the exact mechanism or analysis of the, what that jurisdiction would be to require that. But we'll include that. I'm hoping to get some correspondence from DOT about all the points that we talked about, so we can put that in there as well and see at this point. So.
As, for example, if the proposed volume, creates some sort of, hazardous or likely to be hazardous necessity when making that left turn, does then the DOT step in and say, well, that then is going to require a split left turn lane, and then they're responsible for doing that. And I guess that's.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know if we can extend that question to Carlito, but that seems like a part of an assessment that's a little bit of a risk analysis, which I don't know if this is part of what your traffic study does, 'cause it's.
So their traffic study did analyze that left turn, and it operates at a level of service A during both peak hours. I don't see, and Justin, maybe just make a note to add, maybe just add in your responses to provide queue lengths so that we can see if there would be any backup at that delay. I don't anticipate there would be. With that said, DOT has on occasion looked for dedicated left turn lanes, even if you have level of service A for that movement or approach. So, I don't, based upon this analysis, I don't see the need for a dedicated left turn lane, but again, as Justin noted, that's DOT's jurisdiction, and if they require one, then.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Zero Place doesn't have a designated left. No, right?
Thank you.
One thing, we did receive the accident reports from DOT, so we're, that'll be provided in our response. So we finally get that information.
Anything else we need to discuss, cover with them?
No.
Okay, that's quite a bit of information. So if everyone please look at the traffic reports. It's comprehensive, but it's not a ton, but take a time to look at the traffic impact study if you look at these. So thank you.
I can give one more.
Please go right ahead.
I forgot to mention, we are before the ZBA right now. We are pursuing the variance from the height, the 2'4" variance from the height of the MBR zone. The public hearing was opened at the last meeting. It was held open. So we're in coordination with the ZBA, just to try to get them some feedback on some of the questions that they had.
Okay.
So we are working towards trying to get our variance.
And members of the public show up and make comments.
I think there was a couple written, emails that were read into the records. I believe 2 were in support and one had a concern about it.
Great.
And obviously, we cannot finalize that process until the secret determination has been made by the planning board.
We're not quite there yet. So, okay, so we're kind of at a stop. We're in position for the engineering review reports, Ulster County Planning Board, comments from our engineer, the environmental assessment. We think report rather we think is completed. We've got some traffic information that we're still waiting on, and then we'll try to clear as much of that up at our next meeting as we can, hopefully. Okay. Very good. Thank you very much. So we're going to go back now to some administrative business now that Rich is here. Who all was here for the first December meeting?
I was.
Okay, so that gives us enough. So did you get a chance to look at the minutes of that meeting? Yep. Any edits, comments that we need to make on that? Okay. Then I would like to get a motion to approve the minutes from the December 6th meeting. Is that correct? So, a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And that leaves 3 of us that are abstaining. So now we move on to the minutes for the 12/20 meeting. Who all was here for that meeting? I was, Rachel was. So like to get a motion to approve those minutes.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
So those minutes are approved. Last thing I'd like to do is to get a motion to adjourn for the meeting.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
So the meeting has been adjourned. Thank you very much for this evening. Appreciate it, and we will see you at our next one.
Another meeting where we didn't vote on our raises.
I know.